This morning, we are wrapping up our three-part series, It's Never Too Late, with the search for happiness. Your mom probably told you at one time or another money can't buy you happiness, but if mom was right, then where do you find it? Millions of books promise it, magazines sell it, and experts teach it. The elusive, long-sought-after secret to happiness.
Were there any activities last week that left you feeling kind of magnificent?
More than ever, Americans are desperate to turn their frowns upside down, spending $700 million on self-help books last year alone, and lining up for guidance from anyone offering answers. Even at Harvard, they're packing into what has become the most popular class on campus, positive psychology. Tal Ben-Shahar is the instructor.
One of the exercises that students go through in the class is what I call the three-question process. What is meaningful to me? What do I enjoy? What am I good at?
Forget your troubles, come on, get happy.
Whether you're a baby boomer facing midlife angst or one of Tal's students just starting out, getting to know yourself is key.
But it's so important that we find our inner selves.
After her husband's death, Janet Lifshin made it her mission to honor her husband's love of laughter by teaching others the power of happiness. She says to laugh more.
Humor, like magic, changes things.
And start giving back to others.
I go to schools, I work with parents and community centers. I find that the more I share, the more I have.
And appreciating what you have is key.
Expressing gratitude regularly, writing 5 things for which we're grateful each night before going to bed can make a big difference.
So too can getting active.
Remember the mind-body connection. Do yoga, meditation, exercise regularly.
And of course, not all the best advice is from the experts.
Almost secret for a happy life is loving everyone.
Kevin Clash has been the voice of Elmo for more than 20 years.
Elmo's taught me a lot of things, to not get bogged down with so much in life. It gets in the way of the simplicity of life and what you're really supposed to be focusing on.
Focus. It's never too late to be happy.
You have to be young to be happy? No, you do not have to be young to be happy. Almost 3.5, he's 45. There's no age limit, baby.
Love that, Elmo. Daniel Gilbert is a professor of psychology at Harvard University and author of Stumbling on Happiness. Professor Gilbert, good morning to you. Can I call you Dan?
I appreciate it.
I want to ask you, everybody thinks, or most people think, if I just lose some weight or I get a new job like I did, or I meet somebody and fall in love, that I'm going to find happiness. And yet happiness seems to fade. So why are we so lousy at predicting what's going to make us happy?
Well, that's a great question, and one that economists, psychologists, and neuroscientists have been thinking about now for over a decade. You know, those things do make you happy. They just don't make you happy for as long as you anticipate. The brain is designed to respond to changes. So the moment you change from somebody who doesn't own a convertible to somebody who does, you do feel happy. It's that moment of transition that you're imagining when you think a convertible will make you happy. It does, but not for a very long time. We fail to think about how happiness will wear, how it will wear in the long run.
So in a few months, am I going to be miserable?
Well, I wouldn't say miserable, but the exhilaration of hosting the Today Show will become more ordinary. The extraordinary becomes ordinary as things become familiar and our emotional reactions fade.
And you've said in your book that actually happiness is a place you visit. It's not a place you stay. Why is that?
Well, you know, happiness is a noun, and so we make this mistake of thinking of it like an object. It's a toaster, and once I can get it, then it's mine and I get to keep it. Happiness is a temporary state that we can visit. We can go there more often if we're smart about it, but it's not a place we can stay.
And perhaps maybe a place we shouldn't stay?
Well, certainly not a place we should stay. Think about what emotions are for. Why has nature designed us to even have them? Emotions are signals. They're your brain's way of telling you when you're doing something right and something wrong for your own survival. Now, if emotions are a compass, what good is a compass that's always stuck on north? It doesn't tell you what to do next.
On the other hand, we want some tips that will help us to find happiness when we can. And you've studied the science of happiness. You've concluded that our greatest source of happiness comes from our relationships with friends and family. That sounds so obvious.
It does sound obvious, but if it were obvious enough, more people would be happy, wouldn't they? It's indeed the case. We're social mammals, and most of our happiness comes from our interactions and our relationships with other people. I often ask people, if you could lose your friends or your eyesight, which would you choose? And they at least pause for a moment and think about it. That's a no-brainer. Blind people are every bit as happy as sighted people, but lonely people are not as happy as people with friends.
And you say forget about the big events, it's the small moments that count?
Well, it turns out that it's the number of good things that happen in a day that predicts your happiness and not the size of those good things. So indeed, for me, I walk to work and I walk back from work, and neither of these things makes me euphoric, but it happens reliably twice every day, 5 days a week. That's a source of happiness.
You also suggest that it's important to value your experiences over objects.
This is true. You know, economists will say if money doesn't make you happy, you're spending it wrong. And indeed, there's some wisdom to that, because most people think that a car is a more prudent investment, say, than a vacation. An object lasts, and therefore it has this durable power, and we should invest in these kinds of things. Turns out not to be true. Experiences tend to create more happiness than objects, all other things being equal, because objects have this annoying property of hanging around in the driveway until they start to disappoint us. Vacations leave nothing but happy memories.
And finally, you suggest that we shouldn't sweat every decision, that no matter which way we flip the coin, it'll work out okay in the end. Is a little of being happy self-delusion, do you think? Convincing ourselves?
I'm not going to say self-delusion, but it certainly is self-generated. We do know from a lot of research that people tend to be pretty happy no matter which way they decide when they're making decisions. Decisions look very important when you're in the act of choosing, but once having chosen, the two alternatives between which you're choosing tend to come together.
Are you happy today?
Oh, I'm very happy today.
Good, I'm very happy today too. Nice.
We must be doing the right thing.
Nice to meet you, Dan Gilbert.
Pleasure.
Thank you so much. If you'd like to learn more about happiness, just go to our website at today.msnbc.com. And up next, actor Stephen Baldwin on his